Good evening, Georgia. This is Edward Paul, president of Gwinnett NAACP. And I have with me tonight, I'll let her introduce herself. You on mute if you come out mute.
Got it. Hi, everyone. I'm Ellie Walker, and I'm the chair of the Political Action Committee for the Gwinnett NAACP.
All right, so we got a great guest tonight, Miss Patty Duran, who will be doing our civic education forum. I ask all guests that are watching on either YouTube or Facebook, please put any your questions you may have in the chat. We're going to let Mrs. Duran go through her slide and presentation first, and then we'll save questions after she gets through with her presentation. In the meantime, I just want to make a few quick announcements about some upcoming events that our organization has. First being our general meeting, which takes place every second Thursday at 7 o'clock at the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Building off 75 Langley Drive in Lawrenceville. At that particular event, we will have a celebration of our AXO contestants, as well as our gold. We do have a gold medal winner who will be going on to the national competition, as well as a bronze medal winner in that competition. So please come out, support them. The ceremony will start at 7 o'clock. So we won't jump into our regular general meeting. We'll spend the first probably 30 minutes honoring all those Gwinnett County public school students that participated in AXO. AXO stands for Afro-Academic Cultural, Technological, Scientific Olympics. Basically, it was an art and STEM competition, and something we haven't done in about 20 years. The last time we did it, Reverend John Stewart, C. Stewart Jr. was the president of our organization. So it's probably back in like maybe 06, 07, the last time we did something like AXO. So we was glad to, shout out to the former committee chair, Keoti Atkins, as well as our current chair, Shante Stroud Townsend, for working to get our AXO and all the committee members that serve on the AXO committee, getting that back up off the ground and back started. So we're excited. We do have one final competition on Friday with a few Gwinnett County students that'll be competing, and hopefully we may get another few more medal winners out of that. And then we'll look forward to having a full-blown countywide. Hopefully we can hit every high school next year. So please support these students. We do got a sponsorship link that I'm running now at the bottom of the screen. Please show your support by donating to help us, sponsor them going to the national competition. We do have to, as an organization, cover hotel stay, and we would like to get some upgraded equipment for one of our contestants that'll be there so she can have a really good shot to win. We will officially announce her through a media advisory probably within the next week or two to the media, so you all can know who she is, what school she goes to, et cetera, because we're excited to bring the competition back and to have a go. And the judges weren't being easy. They were being super tough on the students. So we're grateful to get a really good. I think she's going to do really, really well at national. Just need a little bit of help to put her over the top, I think, to bring home the gold at the national level. So that being said, our next event takes place on June 21st. That's in partnership with the United Ebony Society and the North Metro National Panhellenic, which would be our Juneteenth event that we're partnering with those organizations with. Typically, I know in the past we've done separate Juneteenth, but we're now a more collaborative organization under this current leadership that we have. And so we're grateful for that, grateful to President Pratt of the United Ebony Society for partnering with us, and to President Ackerson for that. So please come out for Juneteenth. It'll be from 3 to 8 p.m. at Rose Jordan Park, Saturday, June 21st. We will be celebrating Juneteenth. It's free to the public. If you are a vendor and want to sign up as a vendor, this will be a great opportunity to get your business out there. You can go to www.gwinnettnaacp.org and go to our events page, and you can register as a vendor on our events page, or you can go, if you're watching on Facebook now, you can go to that particular event on our Facebook page. I know it says purchase tickets. That purchase tickets button is just a link to take you to register as a vendor. Like I said, the Juneteenth will be open to the public and no cost. So you definitely can come and celebrate Juneteenth with the NAACP at Rose Jordan on June 21st, Saturday. Finally, But before I do that, I also want to go back in time a little bit. Thank you to everybody that came out to our Malcolm X event, which was this past Saturday on, a couple Saturdays ago now, on May 17th. Great event. We had a great speaker, Professor Samuel Livingston out of Morehouse, gave a great presentation on Malcolm X. It was his 100th birthday. So definitely want to shout out United Ebony Society, North Metro Panhellenic for partnering with us on that event. I want to shout out NAACP member Athenia Rodney for helping us put that event together. Her mother, Mother Juanita, for doing the libation during that particular Malcolm X event. And we're going to celebrate Malcolm every year. It's going to be an every year thing. So look for the NAACP and partners to continue to do that. I know we do MLK here in Gwinnett County every year, but Malcolm X was just as impactful in our community as Martin Luther King, and so we're going to lift him up. We're going to make that a year-round thing. I know they do a lot in the city of Atlanta to celebrate Malcolm and his birthday, and we're going to try to bring that to Gwinnett County as well. Finally, final announcement before we jump into our program. We do have our Freedom Fund banquet that is scheduled to take place on Saturday, September 20th from 6 to 10 at the Beaufort Community Center. Tickets are on sale now. We do have an outstanding speaker, Dr. Daniel Black from Clark, Atlanta, who's going to rock the house, bringing us a great spiel. So I hope all my church folks don't run out of our event hollering and screaming with the Holy Ghost, because Daniel Black does bring that type of spirit when he speaks. And those who are not familiar with Baba Black, please type in YouTube Clark Atlanta commencement speech. He brought the house down at Clark, Atlanta. So we look for him to bring the house down here in Gwinnett County for our Freedom Fund banquet. The tickets are on sale now. The link is below to get your tickets or purchase your table. If you're an organization or faith-based organization, want to purchase a table, or business, purchase your table. We will have sponsorship package for our small businesses, medium and large businesses, and corporations that should be going out by next week for that particular event. So that'll be on Saturday, September 20th at the Beaufort Community Center. Finally, some breaking news around Public Service Commissioner. We just learned today that Secretary of State Brad Raffner has removed Daniel Blackman off of the ballot. So any votes that he's received for District 3 Democratic primary for Public Service Commissioner will not count. So I'm not sure if Blackman released a statement in regards to that, but again, we are running a candidate forum on Sunday, June 1st. I'm not sure if he's still going to attend, given the circumstances. He may still attend, and we'll allow him an opportunity to speak on that if he does still plan on attending our candidate forum on Sunday, June 1st. We'll be right back here on June 1st at 7 p.m. on Sunday. And if he's here, then we'll give him an opportunity to say, what he plans on doing in regards to that. But for now, per the judge, he's been ruled invalid to be on the ballot due to residency. And, the Secretary of State has announced that any votes that's cast in his name would not count. So just keep that in mind when you go into the polls to vote. So at this time, that's it for me for the announcements. I'm going to bring in Mrs. Patty Duran, allow her to introduce herself and her background, and get started with our presentation.
All right. Thank you very much. Those are some great announcements. I wish I lived in Gwinnett County and was part of your organization. That all sounds really great. So just quickly, I launched a nonprofit 2 months ago called Georgians for Affordable Energy, because I am very frustrated about what I see at the Public Service Commission. I too ran for Georgia Public Service Commission in 2022. The election was canceled due to litigation surrounding racism and the statewide nature of the vote, which I'll cover in a minute. Prior to that, I ran a nonprofit called the Smart Energy Consumer Collaborative, which did research around consumers and the grid, the electricity grid. And I was pretty happy doing that for about 10 years until I was invited to present some of that research to the Public Service Commission. And to my surprise and disappointment, the commission ignored the findings of my research that a particular rate plan they wanted to pass would target and harm low-income consumers. That plan they call smart usage, but was really a demand charge rate plan. And I recommended they don't approve it. And when they did, I couldn't believe it. I call that my naive phase. I didn't know that Georgia Power would intentionally harm poor people. And I didn't know the commission would allow it. So once I discovered that, I could no longer sit by. I decided to leave and run for office. That election was canceled. And so I have remained engaged all these years since 2022. And now during elections, I'm more engaged than ever and decided not to run for office because I'm having some success outside of the campaigning. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sorry, this font is gray. I didn't change everything to black. I should have, I see. But the Georgia Public Service Commission is a 5-person elected body that regulates, you can see there it regulates utilities, telecom, gas, and electricity. But the big gorilla in the room is Georgia Power. They have most of the service for residential business consumers in the state. And the commission also regulates Georgia Power in terms of energy mix. There's a little bit they do on broadband, a little bit they do on telecom and gas, but those markets are deregulated. So there are competitors in those markets. And so they're not as closely regulated as electricity is. And just to be clear, because some people are confused that since Georgia Power is regulated, is it a for-profit? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a state entity? It is very much a for-profit. It is a monopoly for-profit corporation, which is the worst of all worlds. They are gangbusters for profits, and they will do anything for it. And the only thing holding them back from even worse abuse is the Public Service Commission. And you can see here, this is a slide I grabbed from WTOC. This reporter actually took the trouble to pull Georgia Power's Southern Company's 10K statements and compare their profits from one year to the next and did an amazing job. So I captured that. $2.5 billion in profits for 2024 is outrageous. There is no reason a monopoly with no competition and guaranteed rate of return and captive customers should be earning that kind of money. Who's on the Public Service Commission? These 5 individuals, and I've circled in red the 2 that are up for election this year. Commissioner Tim Echols and Commissioner Fitz Johnson, I would say, are the 2 worst on the commission. So I would be very happy to see them gone. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So the commission is divided into districts, but those districts don't matter to you. They only matter to the candidates and the incumbents because there is a residency requirement that President Paul just spoke about. Just for your information, in case you're curious, District 3 is this district that Daniel Blackman ran for, but he actually lives in Forsyth County, or so the court ruled, meaning he's not eligible to run in District 3. But but who cares? Because as far as you're concerned, the districts don't matter. You can vote for any commissioner in any district, and this year there will be 2 of them. These are the dates. Early voting began yesterday. You have until June 17th to vote, and I'm glad I waited. I don't normally do early voting. I like to vote day of. It feels more like a civic, pride to me, like I'm voting, it's election day. But in this case, for people who waited, it's a good thing because you didn't accidentally throw away your vote on Daniel Blackman. Here are the candidates. In case you wanted to know who they are, on the left side are the District 2. I had a heading, but it got blown away, I guess. District 2, again, it doesn't matter, but District 2 is sort of the eastern side of the state of Georgia. The Democratic candidate is Alicia Johnson. I think she'll be great. The Republican candidate's trying to primary the incumbent is Lee Mums. I actually think he would be great too, although I certainly hope Alicia wins. Because Tim Echols is so bad, I really hope that both of them win their primary, because that way it would be Alicia versus Lee Mums, and Echols will be out of the picture. That's near impossible because Eccles has been around the state. Basically, he's a full-time campaigner. I don't know how he does any work. I don't think he does any work. So we really need to send him home. On the right side are District 3 candidates, Peter Hubbard, Robert Jones, and Keisha Waits. You'll see on the bottom. They each bring their own strengths. Peter Hubbard is the only candidate who actually has worked and volunteered on behalf of consumers at the Georgia Public Service Commission. In fact, he's there this week for hearings that are underway. Robert Jones has experience at state commissions too, just not in Georgia. I think he'd be strong as well. And Keisha Waits has no energy experience, so I don't think she would be a good choice, because the reason the Public Service Commission exists is to consolidate knowledge around energy for the benefit of Georgians. And without that knowledge, that would be hard for her to benefit Georgians.
And I just want to say real quick, not to cut you off, Ms. Duran, for the public and for our nonprofit status, these are Mrs. Duran's opinions, not ours. Yeah. I just want we nonpartisan, so we not, her opinions on the candidates are her opinions, not the NAACP. I just want to make sure that the public understands that. I'm gonna go in the background again, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay.
And then I was going to cover this, but President Paul already did, so I'm going to skip this part on Daniel Blackman. Unfortunately, he was disqualified. So the Public Service Commission provides what I call a veneer of state oversight. They are supposed to provide state oversight, but they actually are doing a very bad job of it. And if they weren't, I wouldn't be here talking with you tonight, because I will be on to the million other things that I enjoy doing. But I cannot walk away knowing what they're doing and knowing that few other people understand it. So my whole work these past few years has been to raise awareness and get some traction on the issues that would solve these problems. Just quickly, the main problems are that the Georgia power bills are outrageously high. There's no concern for energy burden. They've allowed Georgia Power to build the most expensive power plant ever built on Earth. They have no concern for climate change. The incumbents are not even Georgia Power customers, and incumbents have been corrupted with money. So let's take a look at some of that. I'm not in the room there, so I can't poll you like I normally would, which would be to ask how many of you are Georgia Power customers. But if you are a customer, you know that your bills are extremely high. You'll see here the AJC headline that Georgia is in the top 5 states for the highest utility bills, and their profits I've already shown you. There have been 6 rate increases just in the last 2 years. You can see this stacked chart the Atlanta Journal put together showing an increase of $45 a month. That's on average throughout the year. It's $60 a month for summer bills, which is the big bill, when the big bills come. That is an outrageous level of increase in the last 2 years. It's unprecedented. No other state has ever done that or would do that to their people. And I'm going to skip this one. So there have been a lot of headlines on the high power bills that hit last summer. You can see the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer, insane and ridiculous. The Atlanta Journal, profits soar as customers feel the pain. And then there's been no concern for energy burden, basically because the commission are all 5 conservative Republicans. Like they're all white. So the only Black person on the commission is Fitz Johnson, and he was appointed to the commission by Governor Kemp for being a donor. He brings no energy experience. He's a real estate attorney. And during litigation over the Public Service Commissions, which we'll get to in a second, Fitz Johnson was asked what he knows about energy poverty, and he had never heard of it, and said he could look it up if anybody wanted him to look it up. The others would answer the same way. This is an interesting couple of maps side by side, because here you can see that households with energy burden above 10% are darker purple or medium purple, and it corresponds almost perfectly with the Georgia Power service territory map, showing you how damaging Georgia Power is to energy burden in Georgia. The white areas are serviced by electric membership corporations, or EMCs. And then this is a painful topic to discuss, but I think, if you're here, you are civically minded and you want to know things. I assume and hope you know. If not, I'll do a quick primer that in 2020, litigation was filed by 4 Black plaintiffs alleging that the way the commissioners are elected statewide is racist and violates the Voting Rights Act. And that case didn't docket until 2022 because of COVID. And it did finally docket, and I attended a lot of the hearings, and they put on an amazing case. They had voting rights experts who showed that for the commissioner who served the Atlanta metro area, the commissioner who served in that area, Chuck Eaton, would never have been elected had the constituents of that district voted just for their commissioner. He served for 14 years, and his district didn't want him. When they showed that and other proofs, and the judge ruled in their favor. And this was a picture of the commission in 2018. Oh, we're not racist. They have all white males, all Republicans, but at that point for 18 years. So they realized that's not a good look if you're trying to defend yourself against a voting rights violation. So they had Chuck Eaton resign, and they appointed Fitz Johnson, who has been abysmal. He has voted in lockstep with the Republicans. He's Republican himself and has shown complete disregard for energy burden or energy poverty, assuming he figured out what it is, and has even as a real estate attorney, understanding the importance of real estate and making his money off of real estate, he voted against Black plaintiffs who were trying to hold on to their land in Sandersville, Georgia, against white railroad owners trying to expand their railroad line for profit. And they wouldn't sell, and the railroad owners came to the Public Service Commission, asked for condemnation by eminent domain, and got a 5-0 vote to do so. And those plaintiffs are appealing, but that's how that vote went. Anyway, the plaintiffs won, assuming you know that. They should have won. It is a horrible distortion of state law that allows voters to vote for a district in which they don't live and have nothing to do with. But the state appealed. They would never admit that what they do is wrong or racist. So they won on appeal. The appeals court is the higher up you go in court, the more conservative the judges are. The Court of Appeals in Georgia is very conservative. They voted to overturn the ruling. I read their ruling. It was very facile, to use that word, which just means, elementary. They never addressed the issue of race. They didn't address the issue of disenfranchisement. All their ruling said was they thought that the state should decide how they run elections, and they believed in federalism. They don't believe in federalism, which federalism means that the federal government tells the state how to run their elections. They don't believe in it. And I'm thinking, you're federal judges ruling on a federal law, the Voting Rights Act, being paid with federal taxes, and you don't believe in federalism? You should resign, because that's just ridiculous. Anyway, the plaintiffs appealed that ruling, and you know the rest. The Supreme Court didn't take it, and so the statewide nature of the vote stands. It's really hard for a Democrat to win a statewide race in Georgia, and so I'm going to move on since this is nonpartisan. Back to energy and equity. So that's the situation we have with the PSC. Atlanta has very disproportionate and high burden. Much of the state does, but you can see the color chart on the bottom left where you see the disproportionate energy burden is very heavy in the Southeast. And we all know why that is. Now, this just came out a few months ago. Georgia Power has the highest shutoff rate in the nation. This was a report produced by Powerless in the United States, a coalition of nonprofits. And you can see the red underline, the utility has the highest. It is absolutely a scandal. And one thing I forgot to mention, during that case, the Voting Rights Act case, I attended a lot of the hearing, as I said, and I found out in that hearing that 68% of disconnects in Georgia are people of color. in a state that's got a little bit over 30% minority population, which is an absolute scandal. And the commissioners do nothing about it. In fact, if it weren't for that litigation, we wouldn't even know that fact, because the commission has not addressed it nor attempted to even know who's getting disconnected or why. And there are many environmental justice nonprofits that are asking the commission to require Georgia Power to give them information so they can help people facing energy burden, and they have not done so. So I have a few ways to address energy burden, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to skip that. But if you want to go through that, we can do that during Q&A. There is no concern for climate change. Georgia Power has trumpeted and self-congratulated that Plant Vogtle is the largest clean generation facility in the country with 4 nuclear reactors. Yet the very next month, they have expanded fossil fuels in an amazing, astonishing amount. There's been a lot of media on that. The bottom line, as someone who works closely at the commission, is it's more profitable for Georgia Power to build nuclear and gas and keep coal than it is to do renewables or energy efficiency or demand response or any one of a number of other programs. Georgia Power actually uses their power to block commercial solar. And by commercial solar, I mean solar panels on top of all the flat commercial roofs, of which there are tens of thousands throughout the state of Georgia. In fact, data centers would be a great candidate for commercial solar, but they will not do it because Georgia Power has policies and pricing that makes it not pencil out for a business. And businesses aren't going to spend money unnecessarily on solar if the numbers aren't there. And this is a big campaign in 2022. This is a headline when Georgia Power they used their power to block rooftop solar for homes. Mayor Dickens was very disappointed. We all were. A lot of us worked very hard and lost that battle. And then same with community solar. And we all know that climate change is a serious threat to our health and the stability of our lives and our lifestyle. And 2024 was the world's warmest year on record after 2023. This situation is dire. And Dr. Robert Bullard has a great quote I've never forgotten after I heard it. Climate change hits minority communities first, worst, and longest. So that is an issue to come back to. Plant Vogtle was, the 2 new reactors were added to Plant Vogtle's units 1 and 2. Now there's 3 and 4. It was $17 billion over budget for a total of $36 billion. In my opinion, people should have gone to jail. This is white collar levels of crime. The only reason they didn't is because the state decides what's legal and the state said this is fine. And I saved this press release that is still online. Actually, PR Newswire has it up. I'm sure Georgia Power would love to have it taken down, where they are quoted as saying that Vogtle would only impact rates 2.5%. And they said that for a decade. It started construction in 2008. This quote was in 2016, a year before Westinghouse went bankrupt due to enormous cost overruns. So that's what they said. What did they do? They did 10 times that amount for a rate increase. If you're a Georgia Power customer and your bill is big, these rate increases went into effect May 1 of 2024. So that last summer was when you first probably noticed the pain. And there has been, no one can count all the internet, but I counted over 10,000 posts online, on Nextdoor, on Reddit, on Facebook, with these kinds of posts. Our bill is obscene, outrageous, 2 to 3 times what it was. I can barely afford my house. That's kind of like the walk of horrors. What could we do to reform the commission? The biggest thing are elections. We've got to turn out Eccles and Johnson this year, and next year, Commissioner Tricia Pridemore, who is, the 3 of them are the worst of the 5. We could actually flip the commission. I don't have a slide to that effect, but clearly elections are the way that change always happens. So that's what we have to do. Other things are, we need more citizen participation. That's one reason I'm on this call with you tonight. I would love to have the Gwinnett NAACP more active at the commission. There are hearings underway right now. There is another set of hearings in June, and then really nothing for quite a long time because there was supposed to be a fall set of hearings for rate increases. And on Monday, Georgia Power announced a 3-year rate freeze, which you can bet if it's something Georgia Power is suggesting, it's not a good deal. We can talk about that during Q&A if you want to know what the trick is behind that freeze. Also, changes in state law are required because the commission is so far gone, in my opinion, unless voters turn them out. This can't be solved at the commission. And so I've been working with Kim Scott and Andrea Young-Jones at Georgia WAND. WAND is Women's Action for New Direction, and they are a woman-led nonprofit that works on frontline communities and environmental justice. And Andrea is a great lobbyist. She and I spent dozens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours at the legislature last summer, actually. We started meeting with legislators, and to my surprise, they were very interested in my dog and pony show about how bad Georgia Power is and how the PSC fails us. And we only met with Republicans because they're the ones in control, and we needed them to support and introduce legislation and pass it. And we had amazing success. These 3 bills you see on the screen, renaming the Public Service Commission, Public Utility Commission. If we're going to have these seats be elected, let's help voters know what they are. A simple word change does that. Establish a Consumer Utility Council. Georgia's one of only, 5 states that doesn't have one. And then a data center funding bill, which would require data centers to pay for all costs related to their energy and water and transmission needs. These are legislation that Andrea and I actually got legislators to introduce, which was far beyond either of our expectations. Before I sound too self-congratulatory, all 3 failed. These 2 laws were introduced by other legislators who are trying to stop the logjam of Georgia Power stopping solar at the PSC. Okay, we'll go around the PSC, we'll go to the state and let the state make a law, and then they can't stop it. Unfortunately, these laws failed too. But we did identify a new strategy that Andrea and I are working on to implement this summer, which I guess is pretty close. So that we hope we can make some significant changes for next session. So in terms of the corruption, someone sent me this. He actually didn't do it right. He had a fraction of the actual money. So I asked him to give me the original, and he did. And so there is so much money. This is a crazy picture. This is a picture of the commission with this table. These 3 people, you can see the backs of their heads. I have identified who they are by name and where they work. They're lawyers representing Georgia Power with business before the commission, donating tens of thousands of dollars to each commissioner. And that's actually what happened with the Sandersville Railroad case. I looked up for those plaintiffs, Janet Smith, the Harbingers, I forget their names, Tar Button, that's what it was. Sounds like out of a Gone with the Wind movie. The Tar Buttons donated tens of thousands to the commissioners before that case of eminent domain went to the commission. No wonder they voted against the Black landowners. And the same thing is happening here. These lawyers are donating so much money. This is a state law that needs to be fixed. And Andrea and I did get a lot of interest in this issue because it is clearly corrupting. These 3 lawyers have business before the commission. This is no different than in a court of law where the plaintiff gives $50,000 to the judge. And then would anyone expect that judge to rule fairly? Of course they wouldn't. This would be against the law in a court, and it should be against the law at the PSC. And then the final thing to show you is that none of the commissioners are Georgia Power customers. They're all EMC customers, and they do not feel the impact of their decisions and their votes. They don't go home to church or grocery store or their neighbors and hear from anybody about their bills because everyone around them are EMC customers. It's a really neat gig for Georgia Power, and I know they engineered this. So that's the end of my presentation. I would really like to press my case that the NAACP considers getting involved as an organization at the Public Service Commission, maybe have a plank or a platform to work on this, because there's no issue more important this country faces. Well, there are some, but in terms of the state, this is right up there. And Andrea Jones, I asked her her advice on how to close this presentation, because these are issues we've struggled with together. And her recommendation was ask to see if they'll get involved, see how much they're willing to do and help with these issues, because we really need all hands on deck. But the easiest, most important thing right now by far is to vote. It's not as important in the primary. Of course, it's important to have a good candidate win. But after the primary, getting the primary winner. Oh yeah, I'm back to politics. Not allowed to talk about that. Well, anyway, that's my view. So I'll stop here and let's do some Q&A, and I'll let
okay. Before we jump into Q&A, I do want to just make a couple of, again, Ms. Duran comments about any partisan candidates to support or not support are her own opinions. We don't endorse them as the NAACP. We're nonpartisan. I will say that to kind of piggyback off, yes, we will definitely be more involved. I mean, again, our organization has our membership since we were inactive for a period of time. We recently just got back active June of 2024, and our membership has doubled since, more than doubled, really. I think it went up, about 150% since, up to this point. So with that being said, we have well over 200 plus members. It's approaching 300 members pretty fast. And our goal is to try to get to well over 1,000 members in the next 2 to 3 years. With all those members, I'm saying that we only need 3 people in our organization to start a committee. And there is a such thing as an environmental justice committee. And so if there are any members of our organization, or if you're not a member and you'd like to join our organization, you can go to www.gwinnettnaacp.org and join. And, help, approach me, because I'm the one that, per the bylaws, that have to endorse created a new committee. But whether, we have members in our organization that want to take on that fight or not, I will say as president of our branch, we will have members, or either myself and other executive committee members, that will definitely get more involved in what's happening with the Utilities and Public Service Commission. I'm sure our state conference president, who I seen retweeted this form to everybody that follows him on social media, is paying attention, and we'll have our state conference involved, which means all of the NAACP branches will be paying attention. Because again, one thing I want to kind of level set before we jump into the questions is, unlike county commissioner, unlike school board, the Public Service Commission is at large. And what that means is, regardless of where you live in Georgia, you have an opportunity to elect all 5 positions. So you really don't need to get caught up in what district do I live in, because it really doesn't matter. You have an opportunity to pick all 5 people. That's uncommon. Most of the time, for those of us who in Georgia who live in Gwinnett County, the way our school board works, you only pick the school board members that's in your particular school board district. Same with the county commissioners. You only pick county commissioners in your particular district. This is an at-large election, so you have a chance to use the power of your vote to change all 5 positions that's on that ballot, because it's statewide. You get to pick all 5, so you need to look at all 5 of them as my public service commissioner, regardless of what public service commissioner map says what district you live in. That's irrelevant. You get a chance to pick all 5. So I want to just emphasize that. Definitely need to turn out and vote for the primary. And kind of like Ms. Duran said, voter turnout needs to be high. The election, in my opinion, was put in 2025 because, most people don't really pay attention to voting, especially here for us in Gwinnett County, where majority of our population is outside of the municipalities. I think like 72% of voters are are governed by the county commission. Which means only about a little less than 25% of the voters will be actually voting this year. But this year, everybody needs to vote. It's not one of those typical odd number years where you ain't got nothing to vote for. There's the E-Splice, which is saying you want to keep the sales tax to fund the upkeep of the schools, the buildings, the HVAC. All Gwinnett voters get a chance to vote for that. If you live in Gwinnett County, outside of Gwinnett County, all of Georgia gets to have a say in who serves on the Public Service Commission. And that being said, I'm gonna take a step back and may even go backstage, and I'm gonna let Ellie run through a few of the questions our members in our organization had or have, and then we'll get into some questions in the chat. I will put on the screen because Ms. Hardrick had a congratulatory thing because she appreciates you speaking truth to power. So I'm gonna put that on the screen real quick.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice. I appreciate that.
On the screen from Ms. Hardrick, and then now we'll get into some questions from us, and then in between our questions, I'll go back and put some questions up from the chat. So Ellie, you can take it from here.
Thank you, President Paul and Patty, definitely for that really in-depth slide deck all about PSC. And I know you covered some of these questions, but for anybody who's just now joining or wasn't able to see the visuals, we're gonna, kind of hit those main points again. So if you don't mind, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about like how the PSC affects everyday accessibility, specifically for Black and Brown communities. So, my first question is, how does the PSC ensure that low-income Black and rural communities have equitable access to reliable and affordable utilities? And then, are there existing disparities in electricity and or broadband access that the PSC is responsible for addressing?
Yeah, sure. So they don't have any programs specific to environmental justice or frontline communities or access according to income. There are great programs in neighboring states. North Carolina has some, Virginia has some. And when I was running, I would say, well, I'll be bringing those here, and I have studied those. But they don't really seem to worry too much about that. The only programs that I know of is there is a senior low-income program. You have to prove that you are 400% below the federal energy poverty level, and then a federal poverty level, and then you can be put on a program, but it's not a big help. It's only $32 a month off your bill. So it's a little too late. There's also Project Share, which is a utility bill pay assistance program. It only has about $2 million in it annually, which is this doesn't serve even 20% of the need. So that is one reason that we need to look to better leadership at the Public Service Commission so that we can get the help to the people that need that help. Because in Georgia, it's getting hotter every summer, and we're at life-threatening temperatures that we've got to do better.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about, the disparities in the populations that are specifically impacted by the utility shutoff. So are there any protections in place to help these communities and these populations from these shutoffs? It's even more, that, but also specifically when you're talking about these extreme weather conditions or public health crises, is there anything in place to help with that?
Well, I have a mole, I'll call him, at the Public Service Commission. I have an insider there who helps me with information. And I've been trying to determine through him and through another woman there what I know there's a rule the commission has that says a person cannot be disconnected from service during a heat wave as determined by the National Weather Service. So my question is, well, what is that? Like, what temperature is that? And, you have to go to another place to look up those guidelines. And then when does that hit? Who determines if that's been hit? And is someone monitoring? With Georgia Power's following that rule? How many people did they not disconnect because that rule was enforced? And none of that information is available. So I don't know what they're doing. And it seems like no one at the Public Service Commission knows either. At least the group I asked, the group should have known because they run the electricity division at the PSC. So that's a big concern. And last summer, actually May of 23, a woman named Juanita Dixon from Savannah was speaking during public comment period. And she was very eloquent and charismatic, and she spoke from her heart, no note cards for her. And she said, which one of y'all represent Chatham County? And they're like, we all do, because they won't admit they represent a district because it's a statewide election. We all do. And she's like, bangs the lectern, and she said, well, then why are we busting our butt coming down here? Because she was part of a bus of public commenters that Georgia conservation voters organized to come. And why are we busting our butt come down here? You should be coming to us. And she's right, they should. It's a statewide office. They should be traveling around the state. And then she said, do y'all know how many people I've buried from heat? And I'm like, I don't know how many. Like, it was immediately horrifying to me. And I've reached out to her and have not been able to reach her, but I'm hoping that I'm going to keep trying and hoping that because what I want to do is what a colleague of mine in Arizona did. Arizona has also a predatory monopoly out there. And I want to create a scandal. I want to find someone who was disconnected during heat and died. And then I want the media to cover that. And I want there to be a scandal, because that scandal happened in Arizona as a result of my colleague. And that scandal caused change. This cannot stay hidden. And so that is one of the many. I have a large list of things to do. That's high on my list now that summer's approaching, is to find Juanita again and get some, or her, or anyone else who can give me those leads, so that we can make this be something that's something that maybe you could help with. I don't know who all can help, but that's my answer. Sorry, it's not better.
No, that's a lot of clarity that we need, and our viewers need to know to come forward when they're impacted, or they know someone that is impacted in these scenarios. And it really helps frame the current landscape and the importance of these positions. So many of us are at least part of, in the Gwinnett NAACP. We live here in Gwinnett. So how is it that the current PSC commissioner for District 4, his term is not up until 2028, when PSC terms are supposed to be 6 years? Can you help clarify that for us?
Sure. I mean, first of all, 6 years is far too long of a term. You cannot claim that the commissioners are responsive to voters if they're not facing voters for 6 years. And then when the litigation happened, I was running in 2022. The thinking was, because both sides, when the appeal was heard, both sides asked the Court of Appeals to expedite their ruling because an election is being held. And the Court of Appeals seemed to agree and understand that request. And then they didn't. Unless there was a death penalty case, there is nothing more urgent before a Court of Appeals than an election. But there were no death penalty cases. They held their ruling for over 14 months. It was an absolute absurdity. And of course, every few months, I'm thinking it's going to happen. It's going to be scheduled. It's going to happen. So 23 comes and goes. And then 2024 comes, we learn that they overturned the ruling. And so then it's been so long that the legislature passed a law adding 2 years to each of the commissioners' terms. So now they're serving 8 years. And that's why there's no election for Bubba McDonald for District 4 until 2028, because they added 2 years, because under the guise of the litigation caused the elections to get out of order, and they're staggered and they need to get back in a staggered. The real reason was because they like who they've got in those seats, and they used every chance they could to add to the terms. The Secretary Raffensperger had every opportunity to hold this election last year. The ruling came in February. Unless he didn't have time to do a primary last year, which he clearly did, there was time. But that's what they did.
Well, understanding these disparities is only one part of the equation. And we know our community and our collective voices matter. So how can we all play a part in these PSC decisions? And more specifically, how can the public influence PSC decisions? What's the process like for public comment or for hearings?
Yep. So it's good to get involved in an organization. Georgia WAND, Georgia Conservation Voters, Sierra Club, and my new organization, Georgians for Affordable Energy. We all have newsletters, and you can sign up on my website, georgiansforaffordableenergy.org. I have a newsletter where I throw down. I do not hold back. I name names. I put thought bubbles on commissioners above their votes when they're bad. Like, no, that $10,000 Georgia Power lawyer Brandon Marzo gave me didn't affect me at all. That kind of stuff, because this is complicated, somewhat boring stuff. So I try to keep it interesting because it's so important. It's what I like to call the most important state agency you've never heard of.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
So we need the public comments. That's how you'll find out what the hearings are about. And everyone is always begging for comments. Please come down. They happen from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning on days of hearings. And the only way you'll know is if you're part of an organization that is tracking that for you. So georgiansforaffordableenergy.org is where you can sign up for my newsletter. Or you can go to Georgia WAND, GCV, or Sierra Club. All of them are doing the same thing. And then, you get 3 minutes. Then you come down and tell the commission what you care about and let yourself, become civically engaged. That's really the key. And then elections is the other key. Those two things. If you're a writer, if you're not a speaker, a lot of people think speaking in public is scarier than jumping off a bridge. Fine. Then write letters to the editor or post on social media. But push this stuff out so that everyone knows. So there's like a firestorm of pushback and awareness. Those are all really important ways.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think this is a great time to look at, who's attending right now in our session. And I'm going to just pause for a moment and see, President Paul, I think he's monitoring the chat. Do we have any questions that we want to highlight from people in the audience?
This one, should I answer this one from Kat?
Yep. So it says, my opinion, while most of us want to do something, we citizens are unequipped to properly advocate. What are some things we can do today to become a better advocate or better advocates?
Yeah, it's informing yourself. I mean, obviously, you can't come into any topic. I care a lot about housing affordability. I care a lot about jail conditions, but I have to be either engaged with an organization that can tell me when to hit the button, when to push the bruise or whatever, who to contact at the Fulton County Commission, what to do about the sheriff, what to do. You have to inform yourself. And from my opinion, taking one or two issues and that being your issue, and it can change in a year. It doesn't have to be for your forever issue, but these issues of the Public Service Commission, energy, climate change, poverty, make that your issue this year and join one of the organizations I told you and read their newsletters. It's not hard because everyone's trying to explain this as simply as possible. And I think GCV, Georgia WAND, Sierra Club, and I do a credible job. But you have to join and you have to read the newsletters and then take action. And I feel really lucky that early on, one of my readers was a little bit critical of my newsletters and said, you have all this information, but you never tell us what to do. You need to end your newsletters with what to do. And that was about 6 or 8 months ago. And that's what I do now. At every end of every newsletter, I have a section, what you can do. And in that section, I put phone numbers, emails, what to say, or if it's already too long, which a lot of my newsletters are because I like to write, then I just say, contact me for talking points. Write your speech and I'll review it for you, or I'll ghostwrite it for you. I mean, we all are working hard to make this accessible and easy as possible for you, but we just need more voices.
And you said, what was the name of those organizations again? You said Sierra Club.
Sierra Club, Georgia chapter of the Sierra Club. You can just Google Georgia Sierra Club. And then Georgia WAND, which is WAND, it stands for Women's Action for New Direction. They are a Black woman-led nonprofit, and that's all they do is work on frontline communities and dirty energy and Georgia Power. We work closely together. And then Georgia Conservation Voters is run by Briante McCorkle, and Briante is one of the plaintiffs for the litigation on the statewide vote. They're doing great work too, and I think that's gcv.org, but you could Google Georgia Conservation Voters, and I can also email Ellie all the contacts. And
sure, yeah, because we'd definitely love to reach out to them. And like I said, I'm gonna say this again for all my NAACP members and future members who are gonna go to GwinnettNAACP.org tonight and join. Again, we only need 3 members to start a committee. So if I get 3 members that say, hey, I want to start, a committee that's organized around environmental justice, again, let's, we can get that started, plug you into these other organizations that are doing work around what the Public Service Commission is doing and controlling in terms of how electric bills and gas bills and water bills and waste, and also broadband access. I know we haven't touched on that tonight, but hopefully I think that's one of the questions we got about broadband access, because that's very important. We do know there are some communities that there's a monopoly on they only got one main internet provider and no competition, and they paying these outlandish internet rates and having to pay it because there's no other game in town. And like I said, I look at internet now. I come from that world. I worked in the telecommunications industry for almost 20 years, so I'm very aware of how internet is almost like electricity now. It's a necessity with the way our world is set. Yeah. But go ahead, Ellie. I think we do got another question from Mrs. Hardrick.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
It says, what safeguards are in place to prevent utility shutoffs from vulnerable populations during extreme weather or economic hardship? I think
we addressed that one already. Yeah, okay. We addressed that one.
Do you want to just touch on it again real briefly?
Okay. Yeah, I was telling Ellie, she asked this question earlier, that the commission does not provide that information, that there is no clear guidelines. They go by the National Weather Service, and the National Weather, you have to go look that up on another website and then determine, did the state's temperature meet that? And then how are you going to know who was cut off? Georgia Power is not saying any of that. There's no way to know. So that is another failure of leadership of the incumbent commissioners, and you can decide what you want to do with that or not. I will also add that this is the first election in 5 years for the Public Service Commission. There was supposed to be one in 2022. It was canceled. The last one before that was 2020. This is a big year. So if you are an a Gwinnett NAACP member or prospect member, and you're not sure what to get involved with, this is your year, because this is a big deal, a really big deal, that there are 2 seats up. And next year, there will be 2 seats again, although it's a little confusing because one of the seats this year is just a 1-year term. The seat that Daniel Blackman and team are running for, the District 3, is 1-year term because it's a vacancy that Fitz was appointed to. Okay. So that seat will be up again next year, but this time for a 6-year term. But disregard all that. 2 seats this year, and then 2 seats next year, repeat, but then a new seat. So we have a chance to actually flip the commission if y'all don't like what you're hearing about how things are being run.
Okay. All right. And Elliot, I think I'm going to go to one more question in chat, and I'll let you finish some of the questions that come out of our organization. The final question is from Ms. Banks. She said, can you share a form letter for us to send letters to our elected representatives? I'm assuming she's talking about public service commissioners. I'm not sure if she's talking about state.
Well, Andrea and I at Georgia WAND worked hard last summer and fall on legislators too, because what they have told us is they get no complaints about Georgia Power, which is crazy, because the legislature sets the law by which the commission operates. So we made sure that did not continue. We were able to get dozens of people. Unfortunately, Andrea and I didn't realize who the pressure points were. We're a lot savvier this year. So when we go back out to our followers and ask for this kind of activism, we will be very strategic about it. So there is no list right now for legislators because the legislature's out of session. There are
Right.
nothing to do right now. Right now is Public Service Commission.
Yeah, they need
So just writing a letter to them isn't very effective right now. There are hearings underway this week, but it's I'm talking to you now, the last hearing is in the morning, but there are more hearings in June. I think just 2 days. So when I say hearings plural, it's not a lot. Would be great for you if you're interested to become active for those hearings in June. And then after June, there isn't really a lot. So it's sort of like all hands on deck right now. And then the election, of course, if you do care about these issues and you like any candidates, you should certainly consider helping them win with your donations or your volunteer time.
Absolutely. And if you'll email me those hearings, I'll communicate that with the committee on social media for Public Service Commissioner hearings. Also, we do got a candidate forum coming up soon, and we'll talk about that later. But I'll let Ellie get back to the questions from our organization.
Yeah. So we're going to shift a little about talking about kind of the renewable energy and environmental justice topic. So, as Georgia is trying to shift toward cleaner energy, and we know the PSC plays a key role in this. And so we're facing the realities of climate change, like you mentioned, and energy transition. And PSC is at the heart of all those major decisions concerning the future of Georgia. But we want to know how those decisions are being made and for whom. How are the interests of Black and Brown communities considered in these decisions, and especially about fossil fuel plants or pipeline projects? Can you elaborate a little on that?
Sure. So the commission makes all the decisions on those issues. So if those are your concerns, you're at the right stop for the Public Service Commission. That's one thing. The second thing is Georgia Power has filed what we call an integrated resource plan, or IRP. It's basically a long-term plan for how they intend to meet Georgia's energy needs. They filed that on January 31st. Everyone had a couple months to read it. And then in March, they had their first set of hearings where they make their case. And what they're asking for this year is a huge expansion of gas. But the gas they're wanting to build is mostly on the current footprint of what they have. I'm not aware of any gas plants that is breaking new ground that communities need to worry about is coming near them. What they do need to worry about, though, are data centers coming near them. But in terms of gas, that's on the current footprint. And then they have also asked for the cancellation of all their planned coal plant retirements, because almost all their coal plants were scheduled to be retired. Coal is dirty. It's very expensive. It's uneconomical is the term they like to call it. It does not compete with other forms of energy because it's so expensive. They want all their plants canceled. And so that's what is before the commission now. So the first set of hearings were in March, where Georgia Power made their case. Then now the second set of hearings is now this week, where the public interest attorneys and interveners and nonprofits can all push back and say, no, we don't think that you should do that. And then in June, there'll be a third set. Gas is complicated. They have not announced whether or where they will expand their gas pipelines. Okay. They will be doing so, though, to meet data center needs, but that is unclear at this time.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, and obviously one of the biggest impacts we're concerned about is our wallets. So whether it's electric bills or the increases in the rates, this commission plays a huge role in shaping like how much we pay and what protections, if any, are in place when these costs do rise. So how are we, talking about balancing the scales between utility companies and consumer needs, how does the PSC balance those like company profits and consumer protections? And then are there any consumer protections in place for Georgians who are experiencing these just rising utility bills and then the inability to pay them? Like what is happening with that?
Yeah. In terms of bill pay assistance, there is very little. Georgia is one of only 10 states with no state mandated or utility required bill pay assistance. The only thing they have is the $2 million that I mentioned. And then there's LIHEAP, which is the Low Income Heating Energy Assistance Program. That is a federal government program that was coming into Georgia. And I think you can guess where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
That program was gutted by President Trump. So now we don't even have LIHEAP. It is an absolute disaster. That is why I tell people, okay, I don't doom scroll. I rage type. I'm very angry about a lot of things, and I put it all in my newsletter. And the commissioners know me, and they know that I'm trouble when they see me coming. Now, let me just clarify, I don't have any power. They have all the power. But there have been a lot of good punches that I've landed. And I've been working since last summer when Vogel raised the increase rates to make sure everybody knows why, who did it. There's a lot of complaining online to each other. That's not helpful. So I was getting on Reddit and Nextdoor and Facebook and X and Blue Sky, like wherever people were, I was there too. And telling them the Public Service Commission did this. Georgia Power did this. And there's a problem here that needs to be solved with elections and with legislation and with your engagement. But don't complain to each other. Come down to the Public Service Commission. Talk to reporters. If you're a writer, do this. Like there's a whole bunch of things people can be doing. But in terms of consumer protections and a balance from profits, Georgia Power is a monopoly gone bad. In my opinion, they should lose their monopoly franchise. They've shown themselves not trustworthy with it. And I mean, I worked in energy. I told you all that at the beginning. And I call my colleagues pretty often asking questions. How does Georgia compare to other states? Is this common somewhere else? What are people doing about that? And sometimes they'll answer the phone and they'll learn it's me and they'll say, so is Georgia Power still raping and pillaging down there in your state? And I'm like, yes, they are. And I hate that. But they know I'm working hard to stop it. And I think this year we have a real chance to do it. And I think next year in the session, we can have the 1-2 punch that we need between elections and legislation. But we need public engagement, and we need people to know what the problem is, which you all do by attending this forum. So thank you. You're my favorite people.
And I'll say before we get to another question from our organization, then I see there's a question in the chat. We'll get to that after that one. I will say is, you're not alone. There's power in organizing. So keep doing what you're doing. And I would just say for those who are watching, if you're on Facebook, don't just watch. Please share this video with your followers, especially those who live in Georgia. It's not a Gwinnett there. I know we the Gwinnett NAACP, but Public Service Commission is a statewide race, just like United States Senate. Just like president, it's a statewide race. And like I said, different from board of commissioners or school board, regardless of what part of the state you live in, you get an opportunity. It's a very rare race that you get an opportunity to pick all 5 people that serve on the commission. We got 2 races, as Mrs. Duran has already said, it's on the ballot this year. That everybody needs to be going to the early voting precinct now to vote for who you want to represent your particular political party. And then in the fall, you get to pick whatever candidate you want to serve in that seat. So we need to be sharing this video so people can get an understanding of how that role impacts our community, and understand, fill out the whole ballot this year. So fill out, in the fall, make sure you fill out who you want to represent Georgia in those 2 districts, and you get to pick all 5. You'll get 2 this year, 2 next year, and I want to say 2 more in 2028.
No, well, let me just clarify. It's 2 this year and not 2 next year, but it's a repeat of this year.
Okay,
So it's really just 1. But I will say that it only takes one candidate, one incumbent to lose his seat for there to be an earthquake. It would be a shot across the bow if they lose their seat, because there has been no accountability. If we can deliver accountability, we don't need a majority. We just need the one. They'll have a bullhorn. They'll be in the room where it happens, to use that word in Hamilton. They'll be able to say, look, if you don't do this, I will go to the media. Right now, nobody cares what Patty Duran says. but media will care for someone on the commission, what they say, even if they're a minority. I don't mean black minority. I mean like one of four. If they do not have a majority vote, they'll still be very powerful. So I'll take one. I would love two this year and one next year, but one could make a huge difference. And actually, the Mississippi Public Service Commission is much better off than Georgia because their commissioners are voted district-wide. And they have been able to elect some really good commissioners to do work on behalf of the people that we have not been able to do.
That's my home state, so I'm proud to hear that. I don't have a lot of things to be proud of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When it comes to electoral politics in Mississippi, but that's good to hear they got some good public service commission. But again, I'm greedy, so I say you got opportunity to get two.
We do. You're right.
Let's get the two. Because you get to pick two. You ain't put in a box where you only got to pick the one that's in your county that you're on the map that says this is your district. You get to pick them both. So let's get two good candidates. All right, Elliot, I'll let you get back to one more question from an additional question. I'll let you get back to an additional question from us, and then we'll get to one I seen in the chat.
All right. So, electricity is the big ticket item, but like President Paul mentioned, we also want to know about broadband access, and that's a lifeline for a whole lot of us, if not all of us. Whether it's educational work, healthcare, we depend on that strong, reliable access. But there's a lot of underserved communities where this lack of immediate accessibility is a constant reminder of the concerns around accessibility and digital equity. So the question is, how is PSC handling broadband access across Georgia? And then how will they in turn monitor and regulate broadband expansion in underserved communities?
Well, broadband, as you've said, it's a for-profit business. Mm-hmm. So in many communities, there's only one there. And part of the reason there isn't more competition is that it's not profitable. The more rural you get, the less profitable it is. Mm-hmm. So they don't bother because there's not money in it. So that's where the state comes in and can make a big difference by incentivizing broadband access through grants and gifts or, fees, franchise fees. And they did some of that some years ago. So it got better for a while. But the commission has not prioritized that. They're very proud of their pro-business bona fides. They talk about that Georgia's #1 place to do business all the time. They don't talk about Georgia's access to equitable energy or broadband. So it's not a good answer there either. There will be no changes to the level of access to broadband or the high cost of broadband without a change in leadership at the Public Service Commission. They don't talk about broadband. They have no programs for vulnerable communities. I can't say they don't care because I don't know what's in anyone's mind or heart, but they certainly don't talk about it. I can tell you that much. So there is nothing I can share with you because it's just off the table.
And for those who not understanding that term, I'm familiar with it coming from telecommunications. Broadband means internet access. That's what we're talking about for those who may not just be familiar with the term broadband. We're talking about access to the internet. And me growing up in a rural part of Mississippi, knowing and still my hometown still only got one main internet provider, and now being in Georgia and knowing, working in telecommunications and setting up internet access in Georgia, somebody that has done that for many years. In my old role, I will say I know there's a lot of parts of Georgia where there's only one internet provider. I've got plenty of customers who moved out of maybe Metro Atlanta and moved to some of the rural parts of North and Southern Georgia, and they don't have internet access. So again, we're gonna have a meet the candidate forum soon, so you can definitely make sure that's a priority for the person that you elect, and they're gonna make sure your Meemaw, Pop down in Southern Georgia or Northern Georgia, outside of the metro areas, got access to internet service, because again, these internet rates are super expensive, and it needs to definitely be a focus because we got a lot of students even in here in GCPS that don't have a lot of access to high-speed internet, even parts of in Gwinnett County. Like I said, I know it's better than a lot of the rural areas of the state, but there's still some gaps. And that definitely needs to be a priority, because internet access, like I said, is equally as important as electricity and water, since everything we do now is digital. So Ellie, I'm gonna go ahead and jump to one of the questions in the chat, and then I think we had one more question before we wrap up.
Yep.
So the question in the chat is from L. Reed. He says, "Can someone check the local zoning plans to see if Georgia Power is included in any new zoning plans?" So if you want to take that, Mr. Rand.
Well, so the state has already been divided by territory, and the only opportunity for choice there is for a large corporation with 900 kilowatts of usage or more per month. That's not any of us, of course. In terms of zoning, if you're talking about a new community, like a new housing community or a new subdivision, that area has already been determined by the state. And if you're saying, like, how do I know who's going to be the electricity provider? You could ask the builder or the owner of the property, or you can send me the address and I can look it up on one of Georgia Power's maps. It's complicated because they split the state, or design the state's utility territory like a Appaloosa horse. Like there's all kinds of dots, and like a Pollock painting where he just threw paint spatters. There's not big swaths like the map I showed you earlier. It's very convoluted. But everyone, your address determines who your utility provider is. So you can Google it. You can call the city or county where you live and give them the address. They'll know. You can call Georgia Power, or you can give the address to Ellie and I can look it up for you. But there's no changing around. It's not unknown. Even if something's unincorporated and unbuilt on, everybody knows, the utilities know whose territory that is.
Mm.
All right, Ellie, I think you had one more final question before we.
Yeah. So I'll just wrap up by, what I keep hearing is that we need people engaged. We need disruptors. And if this is the organization for that. So how can other community organizations and then just everyday citizens stay engaged? History shows that advocacy leads to change. Our voices matter. They make impact. Our strength is in our ability to build collective power. So what are ways other organizations like the NAACP can stay engaged with PSC throughout the year? We know we got multiple elections coming up. So how can we stay on top of this and encourage, our members to do the same?
Yeah, well, it goes back to joining one of those 4 organizations, and there may be more than 4. I think this is Gwinnett, so I know you have more than Gwinnett following you, but I was about to say there's some Savannah groups and maybe Valdosta, but let's just focus on where we are, and that's Gwinnett, Metro Atlanta area. So that would be the 4 organizations I mentioned before, my own, and then the 3, and I'll get that information to you, Ellie. And then you've got to you don't even have to join the organizations. All of them have a newsletter, and that is how you stay engaged. There are people like me that are just as passionate, Briante, Andrea, Kim, Sierra Club folks, that are just as passionate, and they will write out newsletters and maybe join all of them and see which one's style you like the best. And then unsubscribe from the ones that aren't connecting with you and stay with the one that is. And then, stay engaged by reading the newsletter and activating yourself when they ask. It's really easy, I think.
And the only other question I had before we, let you make any closing remarks is, now, I know we're in election season, right? So we focus on the election. But once that part is over with, I think you may have said it before, but I'm taking notes now. When do the public service commissioners meet? Are their meetings all public? If they are, which meetings are public? Just give us those dates that voters can. Where do they meet? Or is it down at the Capitol in Atlanta? So
it's downtown. They meet in a building across the street from the Capitol. And you can just Google it. I know it's 244 Washington Street. That doesn't help, but you can just Google Public Service Commission. Most of the hearings, if they meet to make decisions, those are public hearings. And you can only find out those from the newsletters that I told you about, because you cannot even go on their website and understand anything. It is like built from the 1970s. It is not user friendly. It is not intuitive. you cannot tell what's going on. So you need to have an organization that is engaged on that, like Georgia Conservation Voters or my own. And then they will ask you to come down and speak on behalf of or against some decision they're making. And I will say that the elections, President Paul has been clear that y'all are nonpartisan, but for Public Service Commission hearings, there is no tax issue there. You can advocate for or against administrative issues all day long. You can go down there and say, we don't want this, it's bad, and the Gwinnett NAACP can take a position on it and say that. There is no tax implication, there's no 501c3 or C4. So if you were to form the committee that President Paul has mentioned a couple of times to get engaged, that would be another way for those of you that are asking, how do we get engaged? How do we get engaged? You can get engaged by creating a committee, and then I and others can advise you. And then you can go back to Paul under whatever their rules are and say, we want to take a position on this administrative issue. And they can. And then you can write essays, letters to the editor, social media. You can go down to the commission and speak if you want to speak, or you can do emails if you don't. Like, there's a whole plethora of things, of ways to get engaged and stay engaged on these issues. But I will repeat that this is the most important year in a long time that we've had.
All right. Well, that being said, any closing remarks before we let you go?
I would say that we have what we need in terms of candidates. We have had some years where the candidate choices are skinny for elections, but this year we have some great candidates for Public Service Commission. So I hope that you will attend the forum that President Paul mentioned and take a look at the candidates, listen to them, and ask them some of these questions, and then get behind whoever you think is your preferred candidate. We have what we need. We just have to get them elected, and we have to be very active and intentional this year to make sure it happens. And by the way, this is the first year that the Public Service Commission seats have been top of the ballot. Normally it's a down ballot race tucked below, president, governor, senator, all of them are top of the ticket. And then somewhere around judges comes Public Service Commissioner. No one knows what service means, so they probably skip and they don't. There's a huge drop off of votes. But this year, it's top of the ticket, and it's getting a ton of news because of it. So I'm really excited about that. And I hope that you all will engage and help me in reforming what is desperately in need of reform. And thank you for your time having me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you again for coming on and being part of the program and explaining to us how it works. I did put up there on the screen, and I'll do it one last time for anybody that's been jumped on late. These are the dates and times from Ms. Hardrick. She looked it up. Says administrative session for Georgia Public Service Commission are held every first and third Tuesday of each month in hearing room 110 on 244 Washington Street in Atlanta, which is right across. Like you said.
But I will say that that's great. She looked that up. That is very inaccessible. I mean, you can get there and be there, but you will probably not know what's going on because they will have a very esoteric agenda with weird one-off things, and EMC wants to move a substation, like things that are not interesting to the general public. I don't even attend the administrative sessions.
Okay.
So in order to know where the bang is for the buck, you have to be engaged with one of the nonprofits.
Okay. Well, like I said, we'll definitely be following it. Whether, I know at some point we're going to get members that want to do environmental justice on that committee. But until then, myself, Ellie, and other members of our organization that's on our executive committee will be following this. Like I said, I'm sure our state conference president, because again, this is not a Gwinnett issue. This is a Georgia issue.
Yeah.
This whole night is about Georgia. So that's why I'm encouraging everybody that's watching, please share on Facebook. Please like it on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please like it. Because again, that builds the algorithm for people to more people watch it, because this is important. I mean, every Georgian resident needs to know about why this position is so important and why they need to be turning out to vote like it's a presidential election. Because if you're tired of highlight bills and electric bills, you're concerned about environment, waste with water and gas in your community, if you're concerned about, lack of competitive internet providers in your community, or hardly not any good internet in your community, then you need to be concerned about this election. So thank you again, Ms. Duran.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bring you backstage, and me and Elliot close out tonight's program. You got to thank you for Ms. Stevens for coming on tonight, and we're going to get ready to try to wrap things up. So again, I want to definitely thank the audience for joining us tonight. Just a few quick announcements to close us out. Again, June 1st, we have our Democratic primary for District 3 candidate forum. Unfortunately, Mr. Daniel Blackman, like I announced earlier, was removed by the judge, said he was invalid, and then also the Secretary of State came out today and said any votes that he received will not count. I think I seen something in chat saying that can they appeal? I'm sure there is an appeals process that he can probably take, but at this point, it's going to be a tough hill to climb, given that it was a judge ruling, and now, like I said, the Secretary of State is taking action. So that just be mindful if you still choose to support him. I'm not telling nobody not to vote for him if that's what you want to do, but I'm just giving you the facts because that's what we got to do as an organization. But a couple of quick announcements coming up. Like I said, June 1st, 7 o'clock. We'll be right back here Sunday, June 1st at 7 p.m. to have that candidate forum with those candidates. If Mr. Blackman is on, he can definitely state his case about where his position is on that. And then as far as June 12th, Thursday, we'll be at the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Building for our general meeting, just giving y'all an update on what's going on with our branch and our organization, as well as, like I said, we're going to have an award ceremony for all of our AXO contestants that participated, as well as those who are medal winners, whether that's bronze, silver, or gold. We're going to have that ceremony to highlight not only them, but everybody that competed. This is our first time doing AXO, which is our art and STEM competition, in almost 20 years. So we want to highlight everybody that participated in that. So please come out and support these kids in that. And like I said, make the donation. We do got so far one gold medal winner, which will be going to the AXO competition. So please support, her and her efforts. Like I said, we do have to cover, hotel cost and gas and food and all of that for her, as well as possibly get her some upgraded equipment. And so we don't get these multi-million-dollar gifts. We're a grassroots organization, so definitely please donate and support that particular sponsorship. Finally, like we have Juneteenth, June 21st at Rose Jordan Park, in partnership with United Urban Society, who's been doing this for years. So we're partnering with them for Juneteenth, along with the North Metro National Panhellenic. And then finally, our Freedom Fund banquet, September the 20th. It will be at the Beaufort Community Center on Saturday, September 20th at 6 p.m. So please get your tickets to our banquet, because we definitely feel like they're going to go super, super fast, given we have an outstanding speaker in Dr. Daniel Black from Clark, Atlanta, Professor Black. So yeah, definitely get your tickets while they last. And that's all I got. Ellie, anything else for the people before we wrap it up?
No, I mean, if you're still confused about how to get involved, I think we laid out multiple plan of action. So you know what to do, and now you gotta show up to vote and stay involved.
Absolutely. Well, y'all have a great night. We'll see you again at 7 o'clock, June 1st on Sunday. And this time, now that you know about how the position operates, what it does, how it impacts our community, Sunday, you'll hear from the candidates. And again, we did invite the Republican candidates to come on for the Republican primary. Unfortunately, they one declined. I don't think the other one ever responded. But in the fall, when it's Democrat versus Republican, we'll definitely invite both candidates because we're a nonpartisan organization. So we'll allow you to hear both sides of why the incumbents that are in those seats should be reelected, and the person that may be challenging them, why you should vote for them. So we'll ask those tough questions because that's what our organization does when we do these type of platforms. We ask the tough questions to both candidates, and we'll see how and let you all decide who you all think is best. But please share this on Facebook. Please like this on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, please retweet this because again, we need to get the word out in Georgia about how and this particular role impacts our community. And we'll be doing more civic education forums like this in the fall for a lot of the city council and mayoral races. We're going to have a civic education forum on that. So y'all have a good night. Thank y'all again for joining us. And good night, Georgia.